talk and sound cool. But anyway, capitalism doesn't even serve the capitalist. In order to be a successful, truly successful capitalist, you have to be a psychopath. No humane, moral person can succeed in capitalism. And that's why so many psychopaths, so many mad people rise in the ranks. And let me just tell you, capitalism, how it affects us directly. Let's just talk about capitalism and how it impacts just certain elements of our day-to-day life and existence. So let's start with one. The backbone of any economy, if you believe Marx, and I believe Marx, is the workers, the people who produce the wealth. It's definitely not the elites, and it's not even the natural resources. So you say, you have a country and you're sitting on copper, you're sitting on gold, you're sitting on acres and hectares of lumber, or right off the coast of your nation or coast of your territory, there's abundant fish. In the sea, there are whales. It doesn't matter. There's silicone, there's wind and solar and coal and oil, crude oil to be harvested. None of that matters if you don't have labor. Labor is what turns resources to wealth, which turns resources to a commodity, to a finished product or good. Labor is the backbone of any economy. Without labor, you don't have an economy, you just have an ecosystem. And I value ecosystems. But unless you put labor, human labor, to an ecosystem, unless you put human labor input into an ecosystem, you just have the natural ecosystem. So I don't care if you're a lumberjack or even if you're a hamburger. And people devalue burger flippers. Oh, you just flip burgers, which takes a skill. I have flipped burgers. My first job I ever had, where I had a W-2 payroll, when I first entered the labor market, and I have not found a way out of the labor market since then, was at Rally Burgers, right off of Troost. Right off Troost and 63rd, if you know, holla at your boy, Rally Burgers. And it takes skill, not only to make the food, but to make sure you adhere to the book. If you've ever gone to a food service, and in my wallet right now, I got my food service license. It takes skill. That is a phone book. And there are so many rules and regulations, from holding temperatures to the concentration of the cleaning and sterilizing the solutions, prep, service, breakdown. That is a skilled position. And all of these people, you get all these people that disrespect burger flippers. You go get some MIT programmer and you just toss them into a Wendy's and see how it runs. So it is skilled labor, but we devalue that labor. Why? Not because it doesn't provide a community service, but we devalue the labor because it serves the interests of the capitalists. But anyway, workers. In order to have a functioning capitalist economy, because all human economies, whether they are socialist, communistic, tyrannical, communal, no matter what type of economy you have, it's that same, pretty much applying labor to resources producing wealth. And when I say wealth, again, that could be individual wealth, that could be social wealth, that could be dispersed wealth, or concentrated wealth. So that's a universal formula. But under capitalism, your number one aim is to reduce wages. Wages, if you are a capitalist, one of the biggest threats to your profitability is wages, paying your workers. And some industries are more labor intensive than others. But you will find out throughout the advent, when you went from feudalism, mercantilism, and evolved into capitalism, you will find that the capitalists have been on a relentless drive to reduce labor cost. Because that has always been the number one, because capitalists don't want to work. You're not a capitalist because you like to work. You only become a capitalist because you don't want to work. And a lot of people don't understand. They believe that they support capitalists, that make them a capitalist. They believe capitalism is like Christianity. I believe Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, therefore I'm a Christian. That's not how capitalism works. Capitalism works more like an academic degree. I believe doctors, and I believe in the medical system. I support the medical system. None of that makes you a doctor. In order to be a doctor, you have to have a certain level of training, a certain level of skill, and you have to have a certain paper. And then you have to, when you get all that training and skills and that paper, you have to engage in ongoing continuing education and recertification in order to maintain that degree. So it's not just a belief, or not just an agreement, or not just an acceptance, but there are certain material conditions that you need to make realities in order to be a doctor. The same thing with capitalists. Simply saying I support capitalism does not make you a capitalist. Saying I believe in capitalism does not make you a capitalist, dummy. In order to be a capitalist, you need certain material realities. You need to be in a certain material status in society in relation to everybody else in society to be a capitalist. So 99% of the people I have to debate with about capitalism that try to promote and support capitalism, 99% of them are not capitalists. I have had the wonderful opportunity to actually debate capitalism with capitalists. Just last year, I was in Sag Harbor. And I was talking to a French capitalist. And we were talking about colonialism. We were talking about French colonialism in Libya and in the US. We talked about French colonialism. It was very good and enlightening. I learned a lot from this guy. But he was a true capitalist. Not because he believed in capitalism, not because he accepted capitalism, not because he lived under capitalism, but because he makes the bulk of his money through dividends, unearned incomes. He has a share and control of the means of production. And the dude got homes in like half a dozen countries. You know, he never spends more than 3 weeks in any one time zone. But most people that I'm online talking to, These wage earners, these peasants, these serfs, these proletariat, oh, capitalism, you don't want to be successful, you lazy, you don't want to work. I'm like, it don't make no difference. It's like cows debating the functioning of McDonald's. I'm a cow, you a cow. And you telling me you support McDonald's and you hope McDonald's expands and you hope one day you can even be a part of the McDonald's. And I'm like, screw McDonald's, we need to tear McDonald's down. But it's cow talking to cow. I don't know, but the cow really, and the cow, one cow supports the butcher and the other cow wants to fight and kill the butcher. Which cow is the stupid cow? But the one cow believes one day I will be a butcher. I'm like, but in order for you to be a butcher, you're gonna have to kill the rest of us. And that cow's like, well. But let's get back to it. Wages. Wages are always throughout the founding of history. Now, initially, they found that the best way to avoid paying wages is to enslave people. Capitalism loves slavery. Capitalism, everywhere it has gone, has attempted, even if you look in Asia. Now, they don't call it slavery. Now, there's different forms of slavery. Now, we think slavery means you put chains on your ankles and you pick cotton. But that's agricultural, antebellum, chattel slavery. But when you have a mining economy or a fishing economy or a resource extraction economy versus a agrarian economy, slavery manifests different. And I even talk to black people from Kenya, black people from Ghana, and they tell me, at least we were never slaves. I'm like, you were absolutely slaves. Slavery is not just a chain on your neck. Slavery is the condition where all of the life-sustaining resources and all of the life-sustaining institutions of a people become under the direct control of another people. That's the status of slavery. Now, some slaves get whipped. Some slaves even get some minute or minor compensation, whether that is an extra bucket of chicken or that is starvation wages. It might even be, fame and glory. But if you do not hold, or if your people, your culture, your nation does not control the means of production, the infrastructure, the military, and if your people do not write up the agenda, the laws that govern your life, you are in a state of servitude, of slavery, of control, of colonization, whatever word you want to have that suits your ego. But they say we enslave the workers. But they found that enslaving workers was difficult because all the money you save on wages, you often have to spend on monitoring the slaves, capturing the slaves, housing the slaves, feeding the slaves, clothing the slaves, equipping the slaves. So even though enslaving them means you don't have to pay them, it still forces the capitalists to have to expend the money. Not to mention that the slaves, every now and then, a slave will be born and grow up in the slave system and cut your damn throat. So the slave, northern, you will notice, the more advanced the capitalist system became, the quicker they were to abolish slavery. During the earlier industrial era, the first industrial revolution, the first nation to industrialize was Great Britain. It was also the first nation to abolish chattel slavery because they went from an agrarian economy to an industrial mass production assembly line economy. And they said slavery is just too inefficient. Slaves had very little incentive to work hard, and even if you don't pay the slave, you're gonna have to pay somebody to monitor the slave, to beat the slave, to capture the slave when they run away. It's just too much. So how can we enslave people and make them embrace their enslavement, enthusiastic enslavement? How can we get 100 people to line up outside our door begging to be enslaved by us? That's when they came up with wage slavery. You pay them. And then that way, you don't have to pay the paddle roller. You don't have to pay somebody to run and catch them and bring them back to the work fields. They'll buy alarm clocks and wake their damn self up. They catch themselves and drag themselves into the plantation. And then you don't have to worry about them sabotaging the work. You don't have to worry about them running away. You don't have to worry about them. It's less likely. It was still happening. There were still worker revolts where they'd rise up and beat the hell out of the managers and the owners, and even the guillotine would come out from time to time. But very much rare. Workers' revolts are much more rare than slave revolts. Workers, employees are much more docile, even though they pretty much have the same condition. Ultimately, if you don't want to work, you'll be denied all provisions for life. And if you try to hold on to those provisions for life and you're unwilling to work, someone will come beat you, they will come lock you up, or they will kill you. So ultimately, refusal to work under a wage economy results in the same outcome of the refusal to work in a slave economy. You are beaten, you're locked in a cage, and or killed. And instead of coming to drag you out of your slave shack, they come drag you out of your condo if you refuse to work. And so wages, and they found a happy medium. They found that they would hire workers, they would pay workers a living wage, but then even paying workers a living wage cut into profits. So then they decided, hey, let's underpay workers. Let's pay workers a substandard wage and then make credit readily available through credit cards. So then instead of the same companies that employ us and exploit our laborers and underpay us are the same companies that run the credit card. So we work for them. And then the wealth that we generate, they give us a minute form of that in our wages. And then they loan the rest of it that they don't pay us. They loan us some of the wealth we generated to pay. And then we pay interest on our own wealth to them, that we give to them. It's a wonderful hustle. This hustle, this massive debt, this debt peonage, undercompensated labor is freaking brilliant. I know those old rapists, those pedophiles, those enslavers, those mass murdering genocidal maniacs, George Washington, Adam Smith, King Ferdinand, Queen Isabella, the old school enslavers are sitting up in heaven, because yeah, they're in heaven. George Washington, the rapist, they said George Washington died of pneumonia, and the reason he caught pneumonia is because in his old age he went out to the dank, smelly slave shack to rape a young black girl, and he caught pneumonia in that process. God supports rape. Allah supports enslavement. So yeah, they're sitting in heaven. I know y'all want me to say, oh yeah, George Washington's sitting in hell. Abraham Lincoln's sitting in hell. No, if there is a heaven, Abraham Lincoln, George Washington, Hamilton, slaving ass Hamilton. Y'all like Hamilton now. Y'all think he's a black rapper and not a white enslaving scumbag. But I digress. They're sitting in heaven like, damn, I wish we had thought of that. I wish we had thought of that. It used to be we had to go to Africa and kidnap Africans and bring them here in chains. But now we sit back and Africans are at our door. Please let us in. They're fighting to come here from Haiti, from Mexico. Now the slaves, the people we exploit, are begging to come. It used to be we'd have to run out and catch the slaves and drag them back. Now when we say we got one job opening, 1,000 slaves show up at the door saying, let me work the job, massa. It's brilliant. Wicked, evil, anti-human, but brilliant nonetheless. And so wages. But then there's another problem. Another thing that costs money, work conditions. Capitalists have always had issues with the work conditions, meaning that if you have a mine, often if you were a capitalist and you owned a mine, the mules were more expensive than the workers. And they would literally have pamphlets saying, if there is a collapse, if there is a fire in the mine, get the mules out before you get the workers out. Because it's easier to replace workers than it is to replace mules. And the same thing in the factories, the same thing on the farms. Even now, the most dangerous work you can do in America and in most economies is agricultural work. And so it costs money to make the conditions for your workers safe. And in fact, there was more, and it's a cost-benefit analysis. Now, I have a worker that it takes me a lot of money to train up this worker, and it's a skilled worker. So I'll put a little bit more money, but if it's low-level labor, who cares? And then a lot of the work we do, you're inhaling toxic substances in the capitalist economy. We want to get to the environmental impact of capitalism. This is just the impact of capitalism on workers and why every worker should hate capitalists and want to kill capitalists. Not just fight capitalists, resist, we should kill capitalists. And so people know I have to either stop being a capitalist or these millions of people whom I'm harming are going to kill me. They should know because that's the only thing. You cannot speak to the morality. You cannot speak to the humanity. You cannot appeal to the morality of a capitalist. Because if they had it, you wouldn't have to speak to it because they wouldn't be capitalist. We have to kill the capitalist. And I'm not afraid to say that anymore because the capitalists are not just killing us, they're killing everything. There is not one ecosystem, not one animal species, not one population of humans that is not under direct, immediate threat from the capitalists. We have to kill the capitalists. Yeah, I said it. Do what you got to do. Let me go on record. For whatever humans survive this economic apocalypse of Western domination. Well, no, there was one crazy little man sitting in a little studio somewhere that's told it like it was. While everybody else was trying to secure the bag. But moving on to safety. So the United States, through ongoing protracted struggle, the workers said we need safety. There are workers who are not only killed on the job, they are crippled by the job, they are poisoned by doing their work, and we need certain safety regulations. And they fought, they died, the goons and the government and the police and the prosecutors were coming to bust heads, lock it. Go read U.S. labor history. You want to talk about black on black crime? U.S. labor history is white on white crime, white elites exploiting the white masses, and it is the bloodiest history in this country. And there are still ongoing labor battles right now. And so the capitalists always want to circumvent or escape labor laws, labor safety regulations. And one thing they found was like, fine, this is the so-called first world. And they're going to make us have these OSHA standards. And they're going to cry, all these weak-ass workers want to cry about carpal tunnel. And they want to cry about the house cleaning service. People that come and clean up the Trump hotels. And it's like, I got to clean 300 rooms a day. And every room I go into, I have to use these toxic chemicals that are burning my skin, that are burning my lungs, that are burning my eyes and my nostril. And you need to have properly dilute these chemicals and give me natural solvents to clean these rooms with. And so they were like, I tell you what, we're going to do two things. We're going to send all the hard polluting labor overseas. We're going to send our mills and our textiles and put mining and extraction. We're going to put all that overseas. We're going to send that to Indonesia, to Bangladesh, to Saudi Arabia, to China, where the workers don't have a voice, where they still got the old school, back in the early stage, pre-World War II capitalism, where if you're in a Chinese sweatshop and black people are like, look at the Chinese. Yeah, look at the Chinese. You work in the Chinese industry and you say, listen, these conditions aren't off with your head. And that's what we want to bring to Africa, Chinese economic development. But now, Trump was elected with the promise that he was going to deregulate and bring the jobs back. Allow for more pollution, allow for ignoring, we won't enforce the labor and safety standards. So you go to the hospital and you're exposed to toxic pharmaceuticals and overexposed or unnecessarily exposed to radiation through the x-rays and the CAT scans and all that. Because of labor. I worked as an x-ray tech for 13 years. And this woman, they tell you in school, one of the most sensitive areas to radiation is your thyroid. And they're supposed to provide, every room is supposed to have a series of, they call gonadal shields and thyroid shields. And they were supposed to, on a regular basis, and one of those aprons, those lead aprons and shields would be $1,200. And we as the x-ray techs in some of the best hospitals in New York City, we were trading, hey, let me get in. And we were going from room to room trying to get the proper shield. I worked with this one person at Truman Medical Center. She developed thyroid cancer because she was an ex-radiographer. And it's going to happen eventually. So the more money you make and the more prosperous you live, the more you expose yourself to death. And when she had to take her time off, and they told her while she was undergoing radiation and chemotherapy for her thyroid cancer, they told her, your sick days are all used up. So your paid time off. And when you got a disease from doing your job, be diligently showing up to your job. And she was dating one of the other techs, and the other tech said, can I donate my paid time off to her? And they were like, fine, we'll allow you to. And that's capitalist. That's how much they care about you. If you're a worker, and neither one of those workers was anti-capitalist. I knew. I talked to them through the whole process. And they would ask me about macrobiotic diet and eating a vegan diet and whole foods and all that stuff. But that's capitalism. And it's insane. Any worker who supports capitalism is psychotic or just stupid. And then another issue that the work. So they work to suppress wages. All capitalists do. Even the conscious capitalists. Even the celebrity capitalists that y'all like, that y'all follow on social media. Even Beyonce needs to suppress wages if Blue Ivy or Ivy Park and her clothing lines are to be successful. If she is going to compete with the other enslaving fashion industry moguls. She has to be willing to use slave labor in third world countries and disregard environmental codes and preservation if she wants to be successful. And she does want to be successful. And then safety. And then the third thing is post-work care. Often, especially in industrial society, much of the work, and we really like to believe that we live in this modern techno time, that everything's pure and clean and digital. And you look at these internet companies. And they've got ping pong tables in the conference room. And people are skateboarding around the corporate offices and say, hey, this is the new tech economy. It's so fresh and so clean. Right? But you don't see the dirty, filthy, disgusting, polluting industry of the tech, and the tech industry is highly polluting. You don't see the coltan mines in the Congo. You don't see them mining the silicone and getting the silicate and the rare earths phosphorus in places like Afghanistan. And when you follow the major places where there's major war and conflict, you'll see right there, those are the key areas that are the focus of the tech economy. You don't see the factories in China and Indonesia where they have to build suicide nets because everyday workers are trying to kill themselves because of the dehumanizing monotony of doing that work. And they just, on their lunch break, walk up to the roof and jump off. But now they catch them in nets and bring them and chain them back to their workstation. And then you got people in the United States like, bring the jobs home. Bring the jobs home so we can get that pollution, so we can get that mind-numbing monotony. Instead of saying, end the labor market, end labor, end work. No longer, no employees. Everybody, if you're doing a job, you own that job. No more working for anybody else. No more generating labor off of somebody else. Jeff Bezos, if you want some Amazon money, bring your ass out of that penthouse and go deliver some damn packages. He shouldn't. If I order something from Amazon, I want the person who made the product, the person who packaged the product, the person who shipped the product, the person who put the product on the line to be delivered, the person who takes the product off the line, put it in the car or the truck and bring it to my doorstep. All those people I want to pay. Jeff Bezos does none of that. He sits back with a piece of paper that says, I am the owner, I have the copyright, I have the patent, I own this, so pay me. If I'm going to go stay in Trump Tower, I want the money to go to the electrician, to the plumber, to the mason, to the floor, the person stripping and buffing the floors, to the house cleaners, to the person who guards the door, to the person who empties the trash, and all of those people. I don't want to pay Trump a damn dime. Trump can't tell a hammer from the wrench, and he's a builder. Trump ain't never built a damn thing in his life, except a house of cards. So I have no problem with paying. I have no problem, but I want to pay the workers. I don't want to pay the dividends and the profits to the owners because they have a piece of paper and they hire a bunch of people with guns to say, if you don't honor what's on this stupid piece of paper, saying that I'm the owner, I have shares, I have the stock. I don't give a damn about your stock. How the hell is somebody who never set foot in a hospital making money, millions of dollars and billions of dollars off of healthcare, and you ain't never took a temperature, stuck a needle in nobody's arm, or cleaned nobody's bedpan, and you're making billions of dollars? That's capitalism. But y'all think that some of y'all aspire to be that. And I hate you too. But then another issue with the capitalists is the post-work care. Workers go old, and much of the work in the industrialized and non-industrialized economy. I don't care if you're an Uber driver or you sit at a computer staring at these toxic monitors radiating your face and you're doing these repetitive motions on these keyboards and get carpal tunnel. Work in the modern economy degrades the human body. And so eventually you get too old and too feeble to work. And then the companies are obligated to take care of you. The companies are obligated to take care of you because they're the ones who profited from your labor and destroyed your body and destroyed your health. So when you got to get your medicine, because you got the sugar, because you haven't been able to eat whole, healthy foods. You've been eating on the go, eating breakfast in the car on your way to work, eating dinner on the way home from work, going through drive-thrus, and you've been eating a processed toxic diet, and you got obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure. It's the company. Because rich people, they sit there, they have private chefs. They go to the market. I've been out there. Like I said, I went to the Sag Harbor last year. I saw these rich people pull up in their little, 7-figure cars at these whole markets. And rich people, they don't go to the grocery store. They go to the butcher. They go to the herbalist. They go to the farmer's market. They live the life that used to be considered low-class peasant life. But that's a whole other discussion. They have to take care of us after destroying our bodies. And we have to fight for that. Prior to the New Deal in America, one of the leading causes of death for elderly people was exposure to the elements. They didn't have heat, or they couldn't cool their houses, and malnutrition. They were starving to death. But we say you got to give people Social Security. So instead of the capitalists taking care of the workers whom they've exploited and generated profit of, they make us take care of them. I haven't made profit off of anybody's labor. Even when I owned a business, I didn't take profit. I worked the business. Owning a business does not make you a capitalist. Any income I've ever gotten is earned income. I have no income from dividends. I am not a capitalist. I've never been a capitalist. I don't desire to be a capitalist. So whenever we opened a business or ran a business, which is probably why we're not currently in business, is we would give all of our so-called workers not just a wage for their direct labor, we'd also give them a percentage of the profits. Because they did work, and above and beyond their work, they generated more money because we charged more money. We brought in more than we put out. So after all the costs were covered, and not only that, I was there working right alongside these people. I didn't sit up and put my feet up and be like, yeah, you work for me. Don't desire to do that. I have never done that. So you destroy people's health, and they don't want to take care of people, and then the taxpayer, the masses, we have to take care of them. And we have to take care of them working while we work under unsafe conditions and reduce wages. And so they reduce our wages, they do everything they can to diminish our health and safety, and then the capitalists don't want to take care of the old sick workers that they have often crippled. And only that, when you say you get old and sick, sometimes you ain't got to wait to get old because the environment is destroyed by capitalism. And not just the outer, larger environment, but your home environment. Your home is full of toxins. Some you go out and buy and bring in, others you have no control over. And this G4, G5 radiation from the cellular industry, all the exhaust from the automobiles, Ford and General Motors, Porsche, they don't have to pay for that. All the latex particles you're inhaling into your lungs, the capitalists put, they damage workers. And that's number one. That's not even dealing with the environmental, the tech innovation, the government, how capitalism impacts the government. And then we're going to talk about the elites. We start off with the workers, we end up with the elites. But I'm going to get to that. We're going to start Friday. But I think I have a guest. I think I'm going to have Tom Tresher on, the author of Chicago is Not Broke. We're going to talk about the election and what the elections mean. Lori Lightfoot, we got a progressive prosecutor, whatever the hell that is. Whatever the hell, a virginal prostitute. I don't know what the hell